We'll get started in a few minutes. Wait for people to check in. Looks like we got someone just joined. Happy New Year, everybody. I'll still talk like I normally do, and if I only have myself in here, just so I can actually archive this so people can watch it later if they want. No, people are busy. A few more people to check in. We'll get a few. The one person in there might be me right now. Still have a few more people come in. All right, well, I'll go ahead and get started as we are doing a live stream here, and hopefully I'll get some people to jump on. I know it's busy. It's a Saturday night. It's New Year's Eve. So I'm sure people have a lot of plans. From a sports standpoint, the college football playoffs on right now. I tried to time it so it'd be between the two games. Looks like I'm right at the end of the first game. TCU is leading right now. Has got the ball, and they're up by 13 with about 8.5 to go. So that's a huge surprise in my mind. Although welcome surprise personally, but like I'm never going to be upset when Michigan struggles. Although I was kind of hoping for them to play, hopefully for them to play Ohio State again in the final. But Ohio State has to win the next game too, and I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. So I've been gone for a couple weeks, so I'm happy to be able to be back and back from vacation. Looking forward to be able to post some new content. Kind of going forward, we're going to do another complete set coming up soon for the beginning of the new year. It'll be the first one for January. Actually, this is my end of my 10th month doing this now, so it's been really exciting to be able to do that. I have a top 10 list in no particular order of my favorite moments from the year related to the hobby. And the first one was just starting this channel. Being able to start this channel was a lot of fun. Wasn't sure exactly where it would go. Wasn't sure like who would even watch. It's been nice to see that the audience has grown for the content. And I know the subscriber count is at 130, which is pretty amazing, much higher than it was months ago and maybe more than I kind of envisioned. People are really enjoying the content. So my very first video, I actually pulled some cards out to kind of show and highlight the year. Very first video this year, this card. Sorry about the glare in there. Hope I can kind of get that so it doesn't glare so much. 1952 Bowman, Mini Minoso. That's one of his two rookie cards. He also has a rookie card in Topps as well. I picked this card up, and this was kind of really the start of it. I was like, hey, I've been wanting to do a video for a while, so let me go ahead and get this started. I'm looking forward to being able to put together a channel. I've had some ideas of how to be able to put some things together, just looking to improve. So we kind of go into the beginning of this year and into 2023. So yeah, I was pretty excited to do that very first video. I was very nervous to do it, but I was very happy that I did it. So I was really happy to be able to kind of show the case this card. This is one of my bigger purchases for the year that was non-related to set building. And I think it's just a beautiful card. I think it's a better looking card than his 1952 Topps card. That's open for debate. If people have a different opinion, feel free to share it. I'm happy to kind of hear other opinions on it. But that's kind of my personal opinion on it. I just like the batting pose in there. And actually the image looks a little bit more like Mini Minoso than I think the 52 Topps card does. That's just also my personal take on it. So hope you guys are enjoying it. Other things kind of related to my channel too, I've noticed over the year. The top videos that people really like to watch are the complete sets. And also when I visited the Chicago Sports Spectacular, which I'll get to in a minute. I did the complete sets to kind of showcase the entirety of the set versus kind of just looking at individual players or cards. And also, it's been a big part of my collecting since I've been involved, especially with vintage collecting, has been building sets, vintage sets in particular. So it's always been a focus of my collecting, and I don't gripe at having to pick up common cards from the 60s or the 50s to be able to complete certain sets because it's a pivotal card in that set. I really enjoy set collecting personally because I like being able to learn about the players that are in those sets and hearing their stories and being able to look them up and learning more about their lives post career, many of which are still doing things. As I kind of built older sets, I noticed a lot of them guys are have passed on, but many of them have done like military service and things like that. So they just always had like a really cool story that kind of went with it above and beyond just like the card itself in their playing career. So that's kind of why I also wanted to showcase the set, but also I started using YouTube to research things I was going to be able to look to buy or purchase. So I thought, well, I can put this out there for people to be able to do the same thing with the stuff I'm collecting, even though it may not be the first person doing it. But I liked being able to do that and share that with the community. And, by far the most popular video I had was the 1967 top set that I did back in July after I finished the set. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing, like how many watches it gets from day to day. Hi, Rick. How are you? Thank you for joining the stream and commenting. Remember the old Comiskey Park and the White Sox teams in the late 60s and 70s? I was born in the late 70s, so I wasn't around to be able to watch those teams. They had some really good teams in the late 60s and early 70s. Couldn't obviously get into the playoffs during those time frames, but they had some really good seasons during those times. And some players, obviously, that people have liked to collect over the years just because of their career stats, but they also had a lot of guys that you just don't really hear if you're not a White Sox fan that really played pivotal parts in those teams that have kind of, you just don't gone the way of history, if you will. You just don't really kind of hear their names in the same ways that you do some of their stars from like even the 1950s teams. But I just have really liked enjoying researching the White Sox. That's my team, and I really like following them, even though this season has been a complete disappointment. But I'm looking forward to see if they can do a little bit better in 2023. But not sure if just the addition of Andrew Benintendi and Mike Clevenger is going to do it. But we'll see. All right, so that was number one. It was just kind of joining the YouTube community and being able to put content out there. I hope you guys have enjoyed it so far. As I kind of mentioned, the Chicago Sports Spectacular is the second topic that I was able to kind of pull out from this year as a highlight. I mentioned that one because I attended it all three times. That was held in March. I believe the next one was in June, and the last one was just in November. Did the videos a lot and had a really good time attending the shows. And certainly, everyone has a budget, but it would be nice to have a little bit of an unlimited budget kind of going into a show like that one. Really enjoyed putting together the videos. I really had the most fun going to the one in June when my nephews came along, my family came along, and their stepfather. And my nephew, who's really likes to make videos and is trying to get into doing filming as a career, put together the video for us. So oddly enough, it's the video that's of the three that I've done that's actually not watched the most, but I encourage people to kind of go back and watch it because he did a lot of really cool stuff with the video. Let me pull out my Sports Spectacular stack. So I'm not going to show every card I got from there, but just some of the highlights as I kind of went to the different shows. Probably starting with maybe the most recent one. And I didn't pull every card that I got for it, but I just thought being able to pick up, in a 53 Yogi Berra, 50 Top Spill Yogi Berra, and also a 55 Harmon Killebrew rookie card really were kind of fun to me. They were not cards I was looking for to get at the time, but cards that I've been kind of eyeballing a little while to being able to add those to my collection. And the same dealer had these cards, so I was able to kind of cut a deal with him to be able to put these cards together. 55 tops, I don't really have a lot of 55 tops in my collection. It's not really a set that kind of, for me at least, kind of says like I need to kind of reach out and try and get as many of these cards as possible. But clearly they have some really big cards in that set. Starting with the 3 rookies that are in there, and this is obviously the most affordable one, but Clemente and Koufax being the other 2 in there. But 53 Tops is one I really enjoyed. I like the 53 Tops. I like the 53 Bowman sets. I'm not actively working on 53 Tops, but I'm will pick up cards as I kind of see them, and I feel like they're kind of good deals along the way. So that was kind of a theme as I found as I went through the Sports Spectacular, kind of lots I was putting together. Over the summer, we got mostly 1967 Tops cards as I was finishing that. Yeah, I think the Kilgrew is a classic, and I think it's a very underappreciated card. Thanks for commenting, Rick, on that one. But over the summer, I was still working on the 1967 Topps set, so I was focused on trying to get the short print cards for the high series in that set, which, as you know, if you try to put together that set, that's a really scarce series within 1967 Topps set, but just when Topps vintage set building completely. It's not up there with obviously 52 Topps high series, but it's probably one of maybe the top 2 outside of that one. That's the most difficult set to be able to complete, and it's full of like stars and expensive cards in there. So anyway, I was looking for those at that time, and I was able to cut a deal with a dealer for one of the cards I needed for the set, because I needed to get over a certain money threshold before he really gave me a discount, and I was able to add this one to my collection, which is a card I've been looking for a long time. That's the 1953 Bowman Stan Musial. Early in the year, when I went to the Sports Spectacular back in March, I struck out on trying to be able to pick up a PSA 1 of this card. But I was happy to stumble across this one that's just a beautiful 3 in there. The centering is not perfect. And I'm sorry about the glare. I'm not sure what I can kind of do to cut that out so not kind of being distracting, but because the glare is going to be a problem a little bit with some of the cards. But it's not well centered. It's a little bit off, but it's centered pretty well for a card of its era. And the back's pretty clean. It doesn't have like wax stains that you'd kind of expect on it, or bubblegum stains. So I'm kind of wondering, like, why was this really a 3? As I kind of look through the card more in particular. So I think it's a good case of a card that presents well, and was graded down, so actually made it more affordable to be able to pick it up. The edging is probably something I did notice, and there's like a small little bit of paper loss on the back. But you really have to look at it to be able to pick those things out. But I'm sure that's why it kind of came down. One thing about the SG holders, as people know, is you can't really see the edges as well because of the tuxedo part that they put around it, which I think kind of hides the card's imperfections, which I think is nice for display purposes. But when you're trying to really figure out, why is it a 3? For example, here, when it feels like it could be a solid 5, if it wasn't for those qualities, that's hard sometimes to kind of catch those things on there. But this one was a really important card for me just personally because it's my father's favorite baseball player. My dad and I went to some games this summer for the White Sox, and these were his teams growing up, were the St. Louis Cardinals of like the 1950s and 60s. Certainly has remained a Cardinal fan ever since. We talked a lot about Albert Pujols this year. Just an amazing season. But this was his guy, without a doubt. And he's kind of, by default, become my vintage guy that I like to be able to collect. And, in the same vein, back in March, struck out on trying to get a 53 Bowman Stan Musial card, but I was able to get a good deal on a 53 Topps Roy Campanella. Again, just beautiful cards. I don't have a lot of them in my collection at this point, but I'm starting to get a fair number now. I just think they're maybe the most beautiful cards from the early 50s for the Topps sets in particular. It's just my personal opinion. I really enjoy 53, 56, and 52 for those first few years before they were a standalone manufacturer in 1957. 1956 when they became a standalone manufacturer of baseball cards. This is just a 2, and it definitely shows that's a 2. The edges have definitely got a little bit of wear and tear on there. The corners themselves are a little bit rounded, but the color is still good on the card. The centering is pretty much perfect on the card, which definitely helps with the eye appeal. And I was just really happy to be able to kind of pick this up and add it to my collection. It's the first graded Campanella card I was able to pick up, and the first one outside of a set that I've ever picked up. But really, this steal of all the, for me, I think it was not the steal per se. I mean, the best word, but for me, like the best deal I got at any show that I think I went to this summer or this year was at the March show. And I was looking around at the time. I was actually still trying to collect a card, just a one graded card for every Cardinal Hall of Famer. I'm still missing two important ones, two big ones, Dizzy Dean and then also Roger Hornsby. But at the time, I think I was down to like maybe like 3 players or something, and this was one of them that I'd be able to show here. So I was just kind of randomly kind of looking around the show and see if I might run into one, but it wasn't a show that had like a ton of vintage cards at that time, which was unlike the show that I saw in November, which had a ton of vintage cards at it. But there was a dealer who had mostly modern cards at his table. Clearly, you could see he's acquired cards, and that's the way he's kind of gotten into selling them. He's not, probably wasn't, was a collector first before a dealer, kind of had that feel. And he had this at his table, 1934 Gaudi Chick Haffey. Chick Haffey, was a Hall of Famer that got in by the Veterans Committee. Kind of was also chaired at that point by his old teammate at that point, who was really kind of pulling for him and a few other guys to be able to get in the Hall of Fame. So anyway, that's how he kind of got in the Hall of Fame. But Chick Haffey was a part of the Cardinals organization and also Cincinnati for a good part of his career. But that is a Cincinnati uniform. And he had this beautiful fort kind of sitting there. And he asked me, I asked how much were you thinking for that card? And he's like, okay, I'm thinking this number. He's like, well, and my response was like, well, this is all the cash I got left, which was, excuse me, about $20 less than what he was asking. He's like, that's fine, done. And it was far below the book value, far below comps that recently had sold too. So, and it's a 4, so it's just a beautiful example of, cards from this era. You can say, if you use collector grade, you expect, I'm sorry, it's a 3. Instead of 4 total time, and it says 3 out there. If you use collector grade as a way of being able to kind of define your collection, this Chick Haffey is a 3 right on the spot. The centering is pretty good for a card of that era, even though it's a little bit off to the right versus the left. There's some wrinkling in the card because I kind of looked through it on the image during the diamond that's kind of put up there in the back. But otherwise, the back is like super white, so it hasn't really aged much. So however it was kind of stored, it was really kept away from a lot of air or conditions that would have aged it. So it's just really clean to be able to read the back of the card. And you can kind of envision this being almost this clean when you get it out of baseball or bubblegum card pack back in the day in 1934. So it's a really beautiful example of that set in particular. So that was number 2 on there. Looking over my head to kind of see how the game's going. It must be nearing conclusion in here. It looks like, it's a 6-point game. So I'm sure a lot of people are watching it right now and not watching this. All right. Number 3, my family and I had family come in town. One of which is one of the nephews that I have, my youngest nephew, and that side of the family, my wife's side of the family, was a big Packer fan and wanted to be able to go to Lambeau Field. And so we surprised him with a trip to go up there. While we were up there, one of my other nephews found a card shop and wanted to be able to go in, which kind of struck me as odd because they don't necessarily collect baseball cards, but were very interested in going in there for other reasons because they had some other things they collected, like comics and stuff. And when you walked into the store, it had that old card store smell where it's like the old bubble gum, it kind of the dust and must that kind of comes with it. The boxes maybe not as organized because they haven't really been kept up with, but there was just rows and rows of vintage cards, mostly from the 1960s and 70s. So, but as I was kind of looking through there, I ran into a box of Redman cards, and I've never owned any of these cards. And they had a couple Hall of Famers still in there that hadn't been picked clean of these cards, and they still had the tab. So I was like, oh my God, I'm definitely going to pick up Early Wynn, who obviously paid for the White Sox. There's a connection in my favorite team. Won a Cy Young Award with the White Sox, the Go-Go Sox. And then Bob Lemon, who's a Hall of Fame pitcher, but also managed the White Sox in the 1970s. So it was really kind of cool to pick these up. The first one is a 52 edition in there. You can tell by the bottom because it says the 1952 Redman um, edition on there, and also the 1954. I think they produced these through 1955, if I'm not mistaken. So there's 52, 3, 4, and 5. The 4 years they put them together. They came with a pack of chewing tobacco. And the idea is, hey, get these, pick this brand of chewing tobacco and get this card for your son. It was kind of like how they advertised it. And if you had enough of these cards and you turn these tabs in, you could get little things such as like a baseball cap or something like that you could redeem it for. So that's why a lot of these cards don't have the tabs anymore, as people redeem these. So really happy to be able to pick these up. At some point I want to get more of these cards, but you can only fit so much into your budget, obviously, at any given time. But just was really happy to be able to get those, and really enjoyed seeing Lambeau Field. Even though I'm a Bears fan, I was definitely very envious of how well done the Packers did with making that stadium, which is still a functional stadium, into like a museum, if you will. And actually, they had a functional museum in there as well. And next one item was not a focus of mine going into the year. Still really isn't a focus of mine. But I just kind of stumbled across some things and picked them up. And that's Willie Mays. So I got a few things I wanted to kind of be able to show you to kind of get theirs. So obviously the oldest living Hall of Famer, in my mind, the best player ever played the game. Started with me wanting to still kind of round out my Stan Musial Topps cards. Still just missing just one at this point. It's the league leader card from '63, but has one with Willie Mays. And I think it's amazing. It's probably, definitely at the time, the two best players in National League history, I think, were on the same card. How cool is that? One at the tail end of his career, one in the middle of his career. Probably at any given time, even Stan was probably at some point by some people considered maybe the best player of all time too. I wouldn't put him in that class necessarily, but I think he's probably definitely a conversation in being the top 10 player of all time. Then you have Willie Mays, who I think is the best player of all time, on the same card. So it started with picking up that one. So I got that pretty inexpensive, actually, which is kind of wild. If you think about a card that had Mantle on it from the same era, it's going to be 4 or 5 times more than what I paid for this one. And these players are his equals, as far as like his celebrity and his ability to be able to play, but definitely doesn't have the hobby love in the same way. The next one, I went to a local card show here that was held on Mother's Day, actually. Went to the Mother's Day, and I got a few cards at that show. And one of them was this one, the 1960 Topps All-Star, Willie Mays. Not a vintage dealer was selling him, but was someone that loved to be able to kind of like sell modern cards and had some vintage along the way. He was able to cut me a good price on this card, which I thought was fair. And the 1960 Topps sets is one of my favorite from the 60s. At some point, I'm going to put that set together. The All-Star cards are high series cards. So it's always cool when I can kind of pick these up at good prices. The back, there's a little cartoon, kind of talks about some career highlights on there. And then obviously they have a superimposed image over 60 in the background to indicate that he was an all-star, which was part of the 60 set, but he was an all-star, I think, from 59, if I'm not mistaken. Although the series came out late enough where they could have captured the guys that actually were in the 1960 all-star team. But really cool. I love that card. Yeah, Rick, I think it is. I think it is short prints. The all-stars are short prints. It's funny because some of them are not terribly expensive. Like the McCovey All-Star, I've always found to be cheaper than his rookie card, which is in the same set, which that never really kind of understood that to me, because they're both rookie cards, because they came from the same set from the same year, even though one was in a lower series and was printed earlier. So I guess you could say that that's the rookie, but they're from the same set. So I don't know why like the 60 All-Star from McCovey sells for as cheap as it does. At some point, I'm just going to get that one when I see the show, because it's just a steal, I think. Same show, not the same day. Ran into a guy trying to get out of the hobby, and he's like, "I'll give you this card to you for $10." I'm like, okay. Like, I wasn't in the market to get a 1972 Topps card of any sorts because I completed the set. But I'm like, $10 for it's a lower graded card that's actually than the one I actually have in my set. But I think it's still kind of cool to have a graded card of Willie Mays for $10, even if it was from the 70s. And this was the last year he appeared as a Giant. So that's kind of cool. And it's my favorite set probably of all time that I own. So I'm like, yeah, done deal. It cost more for him to grade that card. Like I said, he was just trying to get out. So he was trying to liquidate as soon as he could. And then this next one, I went to a card show back in October, I believe, is when I went to this show. Went to it first in August, and they held it again in October. I wasn't able to go to the one in December. I think they have them about every 2 months, so there should be coming up one again soon. Was a 1964 giant of a giant, Willie Mays. This card is a short print within the set. There's a couple short prints within this 64 card set. Sandy Koufax being the other big name in there. This is a very affordable vintage card to be able to pick up for people. I think it's, at least for the set, it's a very easy one to be able to complete. And the only ones you really kind of have to watch out for are the Sandy Koufax and Willie Mays, because even the mantle is not going to kill you unless you're trying to get like a super high grade of the card. But the Willie Mays is really cool. I was able to pick it up from a dealer who gave me a fair price again on it. It's got a little snowing on the front. That's the biggest blemish on this card. And on the back, you can see there's a little bit of like a career highlight that you kind of discuss in there. Kind of similar concept to what they did on the backs of the cards back in 71 when they did the Topps Greatest Moment cards, which I don't have any of those yet, but I really want to get that one at some point. Yeah, thanks, Rick. I appreciate it. I was really happy with it. And got a special holder to be able to kind of get it and have it more centered in there. I don't know if it'd be something I ever was for submit for grading, and I haven't submitted anything for grading in my lifetime at this point. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but it would be kind of a cool one to do at some point. So that was Willie's. I got a few Willies this past year, and again, not really focused on it, but kind of stumbled on some good deals. And Christ, it's Willie Mays. Like, why would you not try and pick that up in there? I think he's super affordable. All right. Thanks again for watching. I know this is kind of running a little long, but it's all right. People are enjoying it so far. About half through my list. Next topic, I had a little bit of luck with getting retail products. Only opened 2 Topps exclusive items on there. Everything else was just like retail stuff I got. And it was just for the channel. I didn't really go out of my way to buy retail stuff this year, because I think just the odds of getting any true value are out the window anymore. And it's really just for fun. And I'd like to be able to maybe put that money in other places in the hobby. But with that said, I got some kind of cool stuff as I opened up boxes this year. I think the one that was most disappointing was that soccer one I opened up right before the World Cup. But some of the highlights were getting autographs. So I got like a Casey Mize rookie out of a mega box that I picked up on Black Friday from Topps, from the anniversary set, Chrome set from the previous year. I think that was really cool being able to pick up that one. I hope he goes on to have a nice career, for a variety of different reasons. Just take it easy on my White Sox. But it was really cool being able to pick out an autograph out of that one. Was totally not expecting it. Some other autographs. This one was, I think it was a really long shot at getting it. But out of a retail blaster box, I was able to get an autograph from Heritage of Rick Monday, who obviously played for the Cubs and the A's, a few other teams, I think, towards the end of his career. But yeah, we pulled out a Heritage autograph out of a retail box, which I hear people do that. I just never expected to do it. I never opened those products thinking I'm going to get anything out of them. Just because even the chances of getting some of the Chrome cards out of there are so difficult. I have gotten a hot box before and got some purple Chrome cards, but otherwise they've always been kind of duds. So that one's really cool. So I got a card show next Sunday in Bridgeview. Oh, Pat Hughes will be there. Recent Hall of Famer Pat Hughes. And 85 Bears will be there. Oh, that's kind of cool. And just up in Bridgeview, huh? That's neat. I haven't really targeted like shows I was kind of going to yet, other than the sports spectaculars, and I've already bought my tickets for the National. But I imagine I'll kind of be going to shows and trying to find stuff for my sets because I always find it's kind of a good way of getting some things pretty quickly. Hey, Dre's in here. How are you, Dre? Dre, I got to do a little shout out. He was the one that kind of has really supported me, being able to kind of get ideas for the channel, um, giving me feedback as we've kind of gone through it and commenting on just about every video we've done. Dre Diaz has got a really cool channel himself. For those of you who want to be able to kind of follow it, and thanks for joining the chat. So on the topic of autos, I did get some update Sapphire boxes from last year. And I noticed Sapphire this year didn't have autos in it, which I think is a real shame because their autos are really sharp. I think they're really eye-catching. And I don't know why they made a decision not to add those, and then they jacked up the price on the boxes. Just really not a good deal. Really not a good idea for Topps. That one I have to be pretty critical of them, and I'm not really comment on modern products as much, even though I think they all, Topps and Panini, I think is charging way too much for their product anymore. But that was a big miss because that's one of their top products, and people are by and large are going to be avoiding those boxes at the prices they're offering because they're going to get duds because the checklist is just so big. They're going to let somebody else open it and they'll just buy the card they want. But the update boxes from last year are really still kind of good deals. I saw them as listed as cheap as like $100, and you're guaranteed a rookie autograph in there. So I bought two, back in March, and I opened these up right in May, right around my birthday, including one on my birthday. And I got two autographs out of there, as kind of promised, and got an Alex Kirilloff from the Minnesota Twins. This is just a base auto, but this looks really awesome, really eye-catching. Wish you guys could really kind of catch it in the proper light and not get this glare because the Sapphire really just does kind of pop. Sticker auto is kind of probably the biggest negative towards the card. But other than that, I mean, it's just a beautiful looking card. I was happy to get it. And then got a member of this year's Phillies team, which went to the World Series. Not one of the big stars, but a guy who did make an appearance, and it's a numbered auto out of the box, and I was super excited to get it. It's probably the coolest pull I maybe have gotten all there, although I've pulled some autos out of like some stuff from the 90s too that we've opened recently, and I thought those odds were even less. But we got one from a local guy, Nick Patone, who's from Chatham, Illinois here, so that's kind of cool. They didn't win the World Series, but I mean, he'll be kind of always associated with that team, even though he was a backup player. Don't know if it's somebody that's going to really get much playing time going forward, too, because they just obviously signed Trey Turner as well. So probably a guy that'll be moving on from the Phillies, but pretty cool nevertheless. It's numbered out of 25, which is really freaking cool, if you ask me. And then just some other things, just I was able to, from a hanger box, I was able to get the Julio Rodriguez rookie in there and some numbered cards in there. I thought that was pretty cool. Then I got the big rookie in there. And then from a blaster box of Series 2, got a short print of a legend, which will be a future Hall of Famer, Ichiro. I thought that was a really good luck. I wasn't expecting really any luck getting retail products this year, and I was very happy to be able to kind of get some of those. So there's some of the highlights from that. Certainly I've gotten other ones, but pretty cool. Finishing the 1967 top set was by far probably the coolest highlight of the year, maybe other than starting the YouTube channel. I've been working on that set for the better part of 3 years. And I think most people that go into it maybe underestimate just how difficult the 1967 Topps High Series cards would be able to get. And I did right up to the moment where I had to start buying ones that were actually super short printed. And then I was like, whoa, because some of the ones that are double printed, that are commons, are not going to kill you. But when they started going into $30 or more for a guy I hadn't heard of, I was like, wow, this is going to take a little while to finish this. And there were still a couple big cards that were in there that I didn't have. And those are the three I was going to kind of pull out and show you here, just kind of just really celebrate it. Had a good year, and just in general. So I was able to kind of splurge a little bit and get these cards, but also some of them I fit into my budget too, to be able to complete this. And And, the three, I think probably everyone kind of might be thinking about in the high series. There may be other ones people kind of come to mind, but the three I think that come up a lot are the Rod Crew rookie, which is not a short print, from what I understand. But it's a rookie card it's still, the high series is still short printed in the other series. So it's still more scarce than a card even in the previous series. And it's a rookie Hall of Famer, so it's still going to be a little bit more coveted in the hobby. So that's part of the reason it's still more expensive, but it's also why it's not near as expensive as the next card I'm going to show you. This one's got great centering, I think, for the card of its era. The back is not as centered as well. The corners are definitely rounded on there. Two of these three cards I got from the same dealer in different transactions. They both were able to work out a deal with this one. I just was really happy being able to get this one. Yeah, the Hank Allen rookie card. That's funny. Yeah, these dual rookie cards are kind of funny when you kind of like look up the other guy on them. There's not too many where the other guy also made it out okay. Nolan Ryan's probably the most famous one. So it's got Jerry Kuzman on there, who had an excellent career too. But often the other guys didn't really cut it. So that was one. And as I mentioned, the next one was the big one. And yeah, I got the Seaver this year. And it could also be the Bill Denny rookie, if you want to be able to add that on there. Yeah, it was an amazing card. I knew at some point I'd have to be able to pick this one up to finish the set. I just always thought it might be the last card. But this one was a little bit of a celebration, for me, because I had like a good year at work. So I was able to kind of pull this one out as a card I wanted targeted. It had to go through the eBay authentication process. So it's got that little stuff on the back here. It's an older PSA slab, but they were able to determine that it was authentic. It's an authentic slab. The card is real. The card is well centered, but the corners have definitely been dinged up on this one. So it shows the wear you might expect, for a card of this era. The back is actually centered pretty well. That does have a little stain down here on the bottom, which is not atypical for vintage cards. That could be anything that may have stained that one, but just a beautiful card on there, I think. Really happy with it. Happy to kind of have that in my collection at this point now. And yeah, this wasn't the final card I picked up, but I wanted to also kind of just put a shout out for the 67 Topps Brooks Robinson card, which is also the same as you see on the 1969 Topps card. Don't get those confused, because one should only cost you about 20 or 30 bucks. The other one's going to cost you a lot more. This was the one that cost you a little bit more here on there. Again, I got it from the same dealer. I got the Carew on. He was able to work out a deal with me on it. As you can see, the top to center centering is off. It looks like TCU pulled off the upset. So congratulations to TCU. But I'm just really happy with that card, by and large. Yeah, Rich Allen's brother. I didn't know that was his brother. That's pretty cool. Big White Sox player from the 70s, Dick Allen. So again, 67 was great. That's the most watched video I have. I anticipate people will continue to watch it as they want to be able to build that set themselves, or may say like, screw it, I'm not going to build that set, but I'd like to look at it. And I got it, and you can look at it anytime. And it's really kind of cool to have it all archived at this point. All right. Putting together my top 25 White Sox list was a lot of fun. I put those together over 4th of July weekend, and then kind of at that point delayed their delivery, kind of doing it the next 5 days, I think, starting with the 4th of July night. Had a lot of fun doing that. I have some cards I picked up this year just from those guys that are on the list there, some of which were and were not featured in the video. Some of them I got afterwards, but one of the ones I was happy to get was this Paul Konerko card from 2000 Fleer Gamers. It's the Gamers lumber card, so it's got a piece of a game used material from him. And it also has an autograph on there. I owned this card once back in the early 2000s, and I sold it. And I kind of always wanted to put it back in my collection. So I was able to pick that up finally at a price that I was comfortable with. If I ever get a Jeter autograph to kind of go with my Jeter collection, I want to be able to kind of get this from this set. Just really happy to be able to kind of get that one. Paulie's one of everybody's favorite White Sox of my generation. Right around my birthday, I picked up Frank Thomas's another autograph of his, and was on his 1990 Bowman card. I already had it on his 1990 Topps card, but I picked up the Bowman too. Pretty happy to be able to add that one on there. So it's autographed by Frank Thomas, who we share a birthday. Obviously, he's the more famous of us in there, but he and I share a birthday, and also Jeff Bagwell does too. And I would say I was the least famous of the three in there. Really enjoy picking up this Abreu. I think it's just kind of funny that this was the image they kind of picked in there. Showed it a couple months ago. Sad to see him go. I'm wishing him the best of luck going forward in Houston, but he was my favorite current White Sox player. So now I have to figure out who that might be now. Probably would be Tim Anderson. But let's see. Hopefully he stays on the team too. I was listening to a radio show this morning that Los Angeles, the Dodgers, might be interested in trying to make a deal to pick him up now that Trey Turner is gone. They have not had a lot of luck with their publicity this year, so I hope they don't do it, because a lot of people are starting to sour on them because of some of the moves they have made and have not made, and just how poorly they played last year. And then I got Early Wins rookie card at a show back in August. I think is when I got this one, maybe October. I think when I picked up this one. No, it was August, I think, when I got it. It was my first 1949 Bowman. The grade is pretty low, and I think it's deserving on there. There's a little bit of creasing, and the corners are really beat up, and the color on the corners is really dirty. The back has definitely gone through a lot of wear, and there's definitely a crease on the corner in the back that you can see that you can't see as well in the front. But really cool. Not really a player I've gone out of my way to collect, but because he's so affordable and he played for the White Sox, I've been picking up some of his stuff along the way. And he's a former Cy Young award winner, 300 game winner. What's not to like about Early Win on there? So happy to be able to kind of pick up that one. All right, I got 3 things left on my list on there for the top things of the year for me. This one is going to include my trip to Baltimore. So I was able to go to Baltimore for work, and I was privileged enough to be able to go to a baseball game at Camden Yards, and I've never been able to had a chance to go there. And it truly is a cathedral of baseball. It's just a beautiful stadium. The team was a lot of fun to watch. The fans were really into the game, even though there wasn't a lot of fans. But it reminded me of going to White Sox games in the 90s and early 2000s when there may only be 12,000 people in the stands, but they're really rooting for the team. And they're young fans, high school, college age people. So it kind of had that vibe that I feel like has kind of been missing for me watching the White Sox this past season. It was just a lot of fun walking around the stadium. I bought a shirt while I was there, but also I was there was making some deals on trying to be able to pick up some cards that I've been trying to pick up in my collection. This was after I'd already finished the 67 top set. So I had some cards, some autographs of White Sox Hall of Famers that I was kind of eyeballing and had on my saved list forever. So I was starting to make deals while I was there, and I was able to negotiate and obtain these 2 autographed Hall of Fame cards from the 1950s. One is a Hall of Famer, the other is an all-time great White Sox. So what's not to like about it? The first one is going to be George Kell. So it's an autograph from his 1956 Topps card. Hall of Famer for the Tigers is probably what he's more known for, and also his broadcasting for the Tigers. Played a couple seasons for the White Sox. This is his only Topps card. Bowman, he's got a 55 Bowman of a White Sox card, and I think there might be a red man where he's in a White Sox uniform, but there's not a lot of White Sox cards of him. This is probably the most populous one in addition to 55 Bowman. So had this one that was autographed online, and I've been looking at it for a long time. He lived a long time, so he signed a lot, so there was a lot of options, but this is the one I was kind of eyeballing because the card was also great too. So I was really happy to be able to get this, and I was really pleased when it arrived. The autograph is almost as good as the facsimile on there, so it's pretty cool. It kind of matches. And then I got a 1951 Billy Pierce rookie card from Bowman, and it's autographed, and it's just got a beautiful signature beneath his belt on there that I think almost looks like it belonged on the card to begin with. So I was really pleased to be able to pick up that card. The card itself is in pretty good condition. It doesn't have any like really noticeable flaws. The centering's not great, and there's some snowing on there, but it's not like the corners are all creased or dented or things like that. So, or writing on it beyond the signature. So I was just really happy to be able to kind of pick that one up. So those are what I did during my trip to Baltimore. I had a lot of fun. I was looking forward to having those come back in the mail. All right, 2 things to go. I've been working on getting a lot of Derek Jeter cards, which there's no shortage of finding graded Derek Jeter cards given his popularity in the 90s and early 2000s. But one of the sets I really like is one of the anniversary sets, and it's 2001 or 2011 tops. I also like 2001 tops too, but 2001 tops gold. But I like the parallels that were in 2011 tops. And I was able to finally get some of his cards graded. So there's 2 I would probably legitimately be able to get at some point in my collection to kind of complete, the quote unquote rainbow of them. But, the theme was Diamond Anniversary. So it was a lot of gem related items. So there's starting with the Diamond Anniversary card on there. I was able to pick this one up at a good deal as a PSA 9. It was right when the prices started coming down on there. So I think the seller was expecting to probably get 3 times the amount I paid for it. But since then, these are kind of like probably closer to the prices that people have been paying for them. Probably just was on the early end of getting this card at those prices. But I just think it's a beautiful card. It's not numbered, but it is definitely not. It's short printed in comparison to the quantity of the base card. And then the cognac one. This one doesn't sparkle as well in this lighting. But you can see them side by side there. And then most recently, this isn't a gem card, but it's the gold version of the card, which has been consistently produced in the top set since 2001 and consistently numbered since 2001 too. And I was able to get the Topps Gold version of Derek Jeter numbered out of 2011. And this is card number 499 of that printing. So those are the 3 I got. I was really happy to kind of get these 3 together on there. So there's 2 more to get. One's the black, which I think is out of like 70 cards, and the other one is the Hope Diamond, which I think is out of 60. So not ones that are going to be coming to my collection anytime soon. All right, then finally, this also kind of fits in the goals for the coming year is, I just got a chance to get started and working on the next 3 sets that hopefully I'll be completing at some point over the course of the next couple of years. It's going to take a little longer to do these 3 just because the price of the cards that are in there. Start with just the oldest one. Started working on Diamond Stars. This is one of the graded Diamond Stars I picked up this year. Actually, the only graded one I picked up this year, although I have others in my collection. This is Jim Bottomley, another Hall of Famer who played for the Cardinals back in the day. Happy to be able to kind of pick it up. He's also a Cincinnati, this picture in particular. Very popular and a kind of affordable set, I think, in comparison to the Gaudis of a similar era. This one is definitely has some wearing. It's got some creasing on there. So that's definitely why it's a 1. Maybe exposed to maybe possibly even a little bit of water. But I'm happy to be able to add it to the collection at the price I was able to get it for. Hall of Famers will jump up in price on there as they do for any vintage set, but it's a noticeable change from a common player in that set to a Hall of Famer. It's a really big jump. Started also 1948 Bowman. So I got this at the last Chicago Sports Spectacular. This is actually the Ralph Kiner rookie card. Like 48 cards in this set, so it's doable. But there's going to be, because of the break in printing cards between the start and the end of World War II, this was the first more commercially produced product after the war in 1948. So there's tons of rookie cards in there of big names for guys that have been in the league for a little while. So that's what makes it a little bit more challenging to be able to complete, is you have to pick up Kiner, obviously being one of them, but He's certainly not the biggest one. You know, he has Stan Musial being the biggest one out of there, Yogi Berra, and probably Warren Spahn are like the big three to be able to complete that set. But it's not limited to that. There's like Phil Rizzuto in there too. So there's a lot of still big names to be able to pick up to be able to complete it. But I'm happy to get it started, being able to pick that up. And I got that one from a dealer that I bought a lot of things from when I was pulling together my 1967 top set. So I was happy to be able to make out a deal with them. And then the final one I'm working on is 1953 Bowman Color. Just a couple I wanted to pull out for you. One kind of highlighting one of the most recent Hall of Famers from the Veterans Committee from this past year, Gil Hodges. I know we just announced the class for this coming year from the Veterans Committee. Just one player getting in from McGriff, well deserved. I wish we'd like to maybe see a couple more on that list. But fun fact about this card is it's the only one taken at Ebbets Field. All the other pictures are going to be at the Polo Grounds or Yankee Stadium. So that's kind of an interesting fact. And I learned that from the community itself too. I think it was from Bowman 53 was the guy that kind of denoted that card. And I didn't know it at the time. And then I got it. And it's like, oh yeah, I think it is the only National Leaguer that is in their home uniform that wasn't a Giant of the cards I've gotten so far. And then got this one also on Mother's Day, and this is Whitey Ford. This one really is glaring, and I'm sorry about that one. An iconic image from that set, but an iconic image for Whitey Ford. It's one of his more expensive cards if you were trying to get one, but certainly affordable, not as much as the 51 rookie card of his is going to be costing a little bit more, but I think it's a much better looking card than his 53 Tops card, and I'm actually a big fan of 53 Tops, but I think the image or whatever they chose for him and how it produced didn't really translate very well. It looks like a very old man on that one. Not as good as some of his other images from Tops thereafter. But Bowman obviously nailed it with this set. I just think, with their color photography and really capturing their likeness and with, the sky in the background and things to kind of really bring the color out. As you can kind of see here is the blue sky with the clouds is really highlighted in addition to the whiteness of the baseball. So, that's it, as far as like the highlights for the year. Those are some of my goals for the coming year is work on those 3 sets. And the only other 2 I'm kind of really targeting is at this point, that could change throughout the year as it always does, is I'd like to get a 52 Bowman Stan Musial card. And hoping that might come sooner than later, in my journeys. And still have a few 2001 Topps Gold cards I'd like to be able to pick up. I am in the process of obtaining a really cool one that's gone off to the authenticator. So I'm happy to kind of show that one, hopefully in a week or so. Not going to say who it is. I'm going to definitely be doing a nice little video when that one comes through. If it comes through as total legit as the real McCoy. All right. Well, that is all. Thank you all for listening for almost an hour to me. This is probably the longest video I've put together to date. Hope you all have a wonderful new year. For those of you that were on the stream, but also you're going to be watching it later on. And good luck with your collections, kind of putting them together for the coming year. And I hope you reach some of your hobby goals. All right. Have a great evening, everybody. And I hope you're enjoying the college football playoff as the second game has now begun. All right. Take care.